So nice to have you here, McKinley.
Yeah, it's nice to meet
Yeah,
you, Fabrice. It's my first time on the show, and I'm very, very happy to be here. I really appreciate you having me.
yeah. Greetings to the US. Now, yeah, guys,
Yep.
we have a really expert from the US, and I'm really excited about his opinion. So I think we will start with the Western Conference. Phoenix
Yep.
against the Nuggets 2-0. What's your opinion? Do you
Yep.
think do you think the series is over or?
I think the series is over since the regular season. Jamal Murray got hurt. I don't think they have the star power necessary to get past any team in the Western Conference past the first round. I think obviously Portland, they have two star players, and they were a good team. They they kind of have fallen off recently since their players are getting old. Damian Lillard's 31, so it was a little bit easier for the Nuggets to get past them. But then once you go up against a team like Phoenix, they're so young, they're so talented. They got a veteran leader in CP3. I mean, they got shooters all around the court. They have so much athleticism. I just can't see Nuggets getting past them. It'd be way too tough, especially two down. No way.
Yeah. So I think that
But
the starting five of the Phoenix Suns is such a great starting five. Do you think maybe they have one of the best starting fives in the postseason?
left in the postseason for sure. Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, they got Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, CP3, DeAndre Ayton. I mean, those are all studs. All of them, they average probably over 20 points or at least close to 20 points. I'm not sure if CP3 still does, but the assist count canceled that out. And Ayton, he's one of the most underrated players in the entire league. Don't even get me started on that. I mean, he is an absolute dominant center. I can't wait to watch how he develops over the years, especially going up against Ayton. Especially going up against Jokic. He's going to have to fight against him and then go bare for the next decade. That's going to be so much fun to watch. But yeah, I definitely think that the Phoenix Suns have one of the most interesting, if not best, starting lineups in the league.
Yeah, and you talked about it. Without Jamal Murray, it's really hard for the Denver Nuggets. I think it's almost impossible to beat a team like Phoenix without Jamal Murray. And at the end, for example,
Yep.
Aaron Gordon. So Jokic didn't have the supporting cast. Aaron Gordon only 6 points, I think, in the last game. So
Yep.
you think the Suns are going to sweep the Nuggets, or maybe a gentleman sweep? What's
I see him winning in five. I see him winning, giving up one in Denver. I think they'll do a big little ceremony for Nikola Jokic for his MVP. Probably want to win that one, and then they'll end up getting back in Phoenix and probably winning Game 5 in Phoenix.
okay? And maybe the Suns. So we saw them beating the Lakers. You think they are now maybe a contender, or maybe they are a team?
I think
Yeah.
I think they got to be the favorite in the Western Conference. I mean, I don't know
Okay.
who else you can pick as the favorite. I like Utah a lot. Don't get me wrong. But if you beat the defending champions that have LeBron James, I know they're hurt. I know that they were maybe not as motivated as they were last year. But if you beat them, they got to be the favorites, right? I mean, and not only did they beat them convincingly, very convincingly. And when you're watching this other series with the Clippers, you think that the Clippers are the team that has the most firepower, at least on paper, and they don't look anywhere near as good as what Phoenix is looking like. So I got to go with Phoenix as the best
Yeah.
team to go with for the championship here.
Yeah. And concerning the Clippers, I think so. The first game, okay, you can lose with the first game, but now I think they are in a big trouble because I saw Reggie Jackson scored 29 points, but the Clippers lost. Uh, I was a bit shocked because, in my opinion,
Yeah, that's
when the
not good.
yeah, when the role player like Jackson
When you got your
scores
when you
29,
got your supporting cast scoring, yeah, you got to
yeah,
have your role players playing well for you for the Clippers because obviously they only have those top two players. And if you got those role players scoring close to 30 points, that's got to be a game you take. You have to take it. You don't really want to write them off because they haven't been at home yet. But still, I mean, I'd be really hard pressed to go up against the Jazz at this point.
yeah, yeah. And without Mike Conley, I think maybe I don't know when he will return exactly, but he's still missing.
If they keep winning, they're going to keep him out. They're gonna keep him out if they keep winning. I mean, there's no point in putting him in.
Yeah, but it
Yeah,
was fun.
I couldn't agree more. Wait, you say what you're saying?
Yeah, no, it was funny because I saw only Jordan Clarkson was the only player who was scoring from the bench. So it was a bit funny, but it shows that the starting five is also like Phoenix, really, really good.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, and they're a balanced team. That's one thing that I like about them. They actually rely on each other to play well. If they're not shooting it well, then they're not going to win. But they got faith in each other, and they actually pass each other the ball. They don't have a superstar that needs to hold on to the ball to feel like he's having his self worth, which I think is a problem with some teams in the NBA. But that's for a different time.
Yeah, yeah, of course. So concerning this series, you think so? The Jazz will beat the Clippers because at the beginning I wasn't really sure about it.
I'm still on the fence because I do love Kawhi Leonard, and I think the one thing about Kawhi Leonard's game that everyone does talk about it and they like to highlight it, it's his defense. I haven't seen much of it recently. I don't think it's been quite as good the last couple of years. But if he were to turn that on, I mean, that's taking away at least one player for the team automatically. And then you got to hope that Paul George comes in at some point. I mean, he's got such a big contract. Got to have him come in the playoffs. So I'm still holding out hope there. But I I love Donovan Mitchell. I think Mitchell's going to be a star in the league, and I think he started to prove that last year in the bubble. But I think the Jazz got it. I think it's going to be a young Western Conference Finals. I think it's going to be Phoenix, and I think it's going to be Utah.
Yeah, but why are we arguing? Because there are a lot of people saying Donovan Mitchell is not a superstar, or they are discussing this topic. Why? I cannot understand.
Yeah,
He's
Shaquille O'Neal was pretty adamant about that earlier this year. Yeah, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. He can go off and score 50 points at any time. I mean, and he's obviously the leader of their team, and he doesn't have any attitude problems. So, I love him as a player. I think he's a superstar as a player. I think he's one of the top 5 players. I think he's under 25. So I think he's one of the top 5 players under 25. But yeah, he's not getting much respect, and I think it's because he's playing in Utah. I think
maybe, yeah.
playing Utah, you're in a small market. It's not that many people watch you. Honestly, at the beginning of the year, I didn't even know Utah was the #1 seed in the West because they're playing. It was Utah, and so I think he's going to get that notoriety more and more as time goes on. I think it's just going to take a little bit of time, but he's a great player. I
Yeah.
love watching him play. He's so much fun to watch play.
Yeah. Yeah, I can only agree. And he's doing this in the postseason. We are not talking about the regular season. We're talking about the most
Exactly.
important part of the season. So
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know.
you got to show me what you do in the playoffs to get paid a lot of money. That's my opinion for sure. That's why I love Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum's on the come up. I got to put that in there.
Yeah, yeah. So we will see. So you are saying Jazz in 7, Clippers in 7. What?
That's actually a really good question. Man, that is really tough. I'm
Yeah,
gonna go with. I think it's gonna be Jazz in 6. I think that Clippers will win 2 games,
yeah.
and I
I
think they'll
think,
probably end up winning the 2 games that they play at home.
yeah. I think in the game 7 I would go with the Clippers, but now because it's 2-0 for the Jazz, I would
Yeah,
say yeah, Jazz in 6. But
I definitely agree with that for sure.
yeah, yeah, but we will see. I think we can move. We can go on to the Eastern Conference now.
Eastern Conference, yeah,
Also, some interesting matchups. We have, of course, Philly against the Hawks. It was a bit surprising
hmm
that the performance of the Hawks in Game 1.
I would have to say that that's the most surprised that I was the whole playoff so far. I mean, I was a little bit surprised that the Lakers were taken out in the first round, but I was shocked that the Hawks won so definitively against Philadelphia that first game. And that just shows how good Trae Young is. I mean, Trae Young is just an absolute superstar. And it's proven. People are talking about him so much more than Donovan Mitchell even. So I'm excited to see where he goes. He's a fun player to watch. He's a Stephen Curry clone. Don't want to say that too far yet, but you know, He looks a lot like him. So I'm excited for that team. That whole team is really talented. No one talks about how good and young and talented that team is. They really did a great job this past offseason. And then even throughout the season, they weren't playing very well at the beginning of the season. And that was when they had Rajon Rondo. And then they traded him at the trade deadline for Lou Williams for an extra scorer off the bench. That was perfect for him. It was the best fit that they possibly could have. And then you also have Clint Capella. He's an amazing center. He's really underrated, to be honest with you, because he had that 1 year in Houston that he wasn't very good after he signed a pretty big contract with them. But he started to revitalize his career a little bit in Atlanta. They got John Collins. He's going into restricted free agency this year. He's one of the best stretch fours in the league. I want him so badly on my favorite team. I'd love for him to be a Celtic. But that's enough for that. I mean, and Kevin Huter. They got Kevin Huter and Bogdanovich. They're both amazing shooters. They really got quite the balance of the team. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if Philadelphia got pushed to the brink by them.
Okay, interesting opinion, but at the end, let's talk about Trae Young, because I heard some guys saying, his stats are empty, so he has good stats, but for what? But now we see he's a winning player, and maybe concerning the trade, because I think there are a lot of guys laughing because the Atlanta Hawks traded Luka Doncic for Trae Young. But now maybe we can talk about the most win-win trade in NBA history, because I don't know, Trae Young is a winning guy.
It's got to be, right? At least in the last decade. That's got to be the biggest win-win trade that I've ever seen. And I think people will still talk about that trade for a long time. I think Doncic, he is the better player at this point. I'm not going to lie. I think he's probably the best player under 25 in the league. So I get why people still talk about it, but you got to look at the position. I mean, I understand that Doncic is kind of a point guard now, but Trae Young is a literal point guard, and that was the most important position in the league for the last decade, and that was proven by the Warriors. So everyone's starting to talk about how you need to have this good guard play to keep up in the league. That's where I think Trae is going to distinguish himself in that area over Doncic, because he's a true guard.
Yeah, but if you had the choice between Doncic and Trae Young, because in my opinion, of course, Doncic is the better player, but for a team, because Doncic is really ball, how do we say it? He
ball dominant.
He doesn't like to pass the ball. He's great, of course, but
he's very ball dominant.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Maybe Trae Young, if you have to pick a player for your franchise, maybe Trae Young is the better option. I don't know. For the team.
I'm really torn up on that, because if you look at Dallas, they spent so much money on Kristaps Porzingis, and it didn't make any sense that they were spending that much money on a player who was pretty much unproven. And so they didn't have enough money to really pay any other supporting cast around him. So he doesn't have much really going for him there, unless he has Kristaps fully healthy. So I think I would still go with Doncic over Trae Young personally, just because you can't find that talent anywhere. I mean, he just makes plays. He's fun to watch, and he's going to be the cornerstone of that franchise for the next 2 decades. And I mean, so will Trae Young, but I like Doncic a lot. He's just a fun guy to watch, and he has a little bit more room for improvement, in my opinion, too, because he's not necessarily the most in shape person I've ever seen in my life, at least when you look up like LeBron or Kawhi Leonard. So he could probably start working out and losing, he doesn't need to lose that much weight, but if he were to lose a little bit of weight, get a little bit more speed, he'd be even better. So I'm going to go with him because of that.
Yeah.
Give me Jason Tatum over both of them, though.
Yeah, really interesting. But at the end, you think that Philly is going to win the series, or
I think Philly's going to win it in 7. They got so much experience in the playoffs. I mean, you have to go with experience over the youth. And I'm not even going to sit here and act like I think Philadelphia is that much more talented. I don't. I mean, I like Ben Simmons. I don't think he gets the necessary. I think he gets too much hate. But I just think Embiid's not going to let him get past the second round. So I like Embiid. I like 76ers. Tobias Harris, he's the forgotten link. Tobias
Yeah,
Harris can go
the
off at
forgotten
any point.
superstar.
He is a great player. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I definitely got to go with the 76ers. I think they got the best chance to beat the Nets in the East.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. So maybe the next game, so this night, for me, that night, will give us more information about the end of the series. But I will go with sixes and 6 or 7. So I cannot imagine
Yep, I'm
that
thinking
the
7.
Hawks are going to win game 7 against Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. I
Me either.
yeah
And I mean, I think that last year kind of exposed me to the fact that if you have really good size, you can beat anyone. I mean, the
yeah
Lakers really won last year's final because they had 3 7-footers. That was it. And that was the first time I've seen in the last decade that any team has gone away from the guard oriented sort of approach. And I thought that was interesting to see. And I think that really benefited Philly because obviously they're really tall.
yeah. 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 So I'm really excited about this series, and I'm also really excited about our last series. A lot of people said that it's already the final, the best teams, the two
Yep.
best teams in the league. I don't know if I'm agreeing with this statement, but yeah, Milwaukee Bucks against the Brooklyn Nets. This night, the Bucks won.
Yep.
They were, I think, up by
That was a
20.
shocker.
Yeah, then the Nets had,
Yeah, KD ended up going off, bringing them pretty close.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm not even torn on this series. I am emphatic in the fact that the Nets are going to win in 5 or 6 games, one of the two.
okay,
I think when you got KD and you have Kyrie Irving, it's impossible to stop that offense. I mean, that's guaranteed at least. Let's give it a low ball. That's at least 50 points combined for the two of them. So let's think about how much they scored last night. They scored close to 90 points, and that was their best performance that they've had the whole season, or
yeah,
at least in the playoffs. I don't think that they're going to be able to go up against that, especially
yeah,
if Harden's back. Oh my gosh, if Harden's back, it's going to be bad.
yeah, yeah,
It's going to
yeah.
be bad for everyone if Harden comes back. I'm worried.
Yeah, they broke a record. Giannis and Middleton, I think they score 79% of the points. It's a playoff record. Really
That
crazy.
doesn't shock me.
Yeah, but
It does
like you
not shock
said,
me one bit. I mean, the one thing I was expecting was Drew Holiday to have a little bit more of an impact. I mean, they really went all out on Drew Holiday being their savior, and he just hasn't been anywhere near it. That's
yeah,
tough. I mean, that's the nature of the game, though. You got to trade for the right people at the right time, and it doesn't matter if they're really that great or not. It's really about the fit. And I think you see that with some of the other teams in the NBA now.
yeah. Yeah, I also thought that True Holiday might be the game changer because I wasn't a fan of Eric Bledsoe, and I also thought that he was maybe the problem. But even with True Holiday, the Bucks are in a big trouble. So they won this game. If they are going to win the next game, maybe we have a close series. But like you said, I don't think that they will stop Kyrie and KD again. And they almost choked the game. We have to say they were
Oh
up
yeah,
by 20,
they should
and
have blown out the Nets.
yeah,
They should have
normally,
blown
yeah,
them out. I can't believe that they even let them get back into the game. Starting out the game on a 9-0 run. I mean, I don't know if you watch any college basketball, but the championship
yeah,
for the
but
college basketball game this year started out on a 9-0 run, and then they ended up winning by like 20 points. That's what I was thinking was going to happen last night. And the fact that they even let them get back in it, and they didn't even score over 100, that doesn't look very good for the Bucks.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, do you have any information about James Harden? Any insider? Because here in Germany, it's sometimes difficult to to get information. So maybe,
You know, he had a nagging hamstring injury the whole year, and I was always questionable about whether that was sort of a ploy for him just to get rested because they know how talented their team is. They knew they would make the playoffs easily. They knew that they wanted him to be ready for their run. I saw the injury whenever it first happened. It was a non-contact injury. You never want to see non-contact injuries, but he looked fine. I think he looked fine. I think they're resting him until they need him, and he'll probably start playing at the beginning of next round again. But I think he could probably go right now if he needed to.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. And maybe last question, obviously, who will win or who will be, which team will be NBA champion 2021? If you have to pick one.
I think I gotta go with the Brooklyn Nets. Sadly, I think it'll be between them and Phoenix. I think
Yeah.
that's probably going to end up being the finals, and I think that's actually a really interesting finals. I think that's a lot more interesting than last year's final because you get to see the young player in Devin Booker who's going to end up being a perennial all-star for the next decade, and then you got Ayton who he doesn't really have anyone that's going to be able to match up with him for the Nets, so that's an interesting matchup. And then you got the veteran leadership of CP3. I think that's a big deal that people don't talk about. If you don't have the right mindset in your locker room, then you're not going to win. So I think it's more of a volatile locker room environment in the Brooklyn because they have to win. They need to win. If they don't win, then they're blowing everything up. First off, because they're going to run out of money. And second off, because it didn't work and they got 3 of the best players in the NBA. So I'm interested to see how it turns out. I really hope that some team can challenge the Nets.
Yeah. I also will go to with the Brooklyn Nets, and like you said, if James Harden will come back next round, you can't beat them or you can't beat them 4 times. It's impossible.
I think it's impossible. I mean, and especially with the way that he decided to play the game this year. I mean, who would have thought James Harden, who's been averaging close to 30 or even higher than 30 points for the last 4 or 5 years, he's going to average 10 assists? I mean, come on. That just shows how good at basketball James Harden is over anything to me. I mean, it's ridiculous. I think he's the best player on that team, and he's sitting out right now. So, and they're still winning. It's just insane to me. I don't get it. I need a team that can compete with them, though.
Yeah. I think we're talking about the
season can figure it out.
Yeah. I think we're talking about the most offensive power in NBA history, maybe. This trio.
Ever. Yeah, I think it's questionable whether it's between them and the Warriors, but yeah.
Yeah, so I think we are at the end. McKinley, it was a pleasure.
I got a question for you, man. I got a question.
Okay, yeah, of course.
So, I don't know if you've been paying up attention with all the new firings / potential hirings. Do you have any team that's fired their coach that you think is going to have a renaissance or resurgence next year after picking up a new head coach?
Good question. So first of all, I think so if the Milwaukee Bucks, for example, will lose to the Nets, I think Budenholzer will leave the team. He has to.
Yep.
The question is, what will happen? Yeah, with I don't know. Middleton will he stay? I'm not really informed about it.
He signed a max extension a couple of years ago, so he's still under contract. They'd probably have to trade him.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't know.
That whole team for the Bucks is under contract.
Yeah. But we are talking about the potentially championship for the Bucks since 3 years, and they were not even really close.
They keep losing in the second round.
Yeah.
They're losing in the second round for the last 2 years against teams that are viewed to be, or I guess not, the Nets aren't viewed to be subpar compared to them, but last year the Miami Heat definitely subpar compared to them. I think if you look at them, when I was watching last year, I thought for sure the Bucks would be in the championship, and then losing in the second round, that's pretty tough.
It was
But yeah.
And
to say anything about that.
About Miami
Heat for Portland.
Portland.
Miami.
Yeah, so the thing with Portland is, I don't know. I think I don't know if the coach is the problem. The problem is, in my opinion, that Portland will always. So in this lineup, Portland will always be a playoff team, but they will never go above the second round. So. Yeah, maybe they need a dominant center. Nurkic is good, but is he that good? That's the question. And concerning the Heat, it's a bit of pity because I thought maybe they can compete against the Bucks again, But this year, for example, Tyler Hero, I was accepting a bit more. Duncan Robinson also. They had a great first season, the Young Guns, but the second year was a bit hard for them, I think. So, yeah. But in my opinion, Eric Spoelstra is still one of the greatest coaches. So,
if they fired Eric Spoelstra, that'd be the biggest mistake that they've made in over 2 decades, I think. I think that they had a problem with Tyler Hero and obviously Duncan Robinson. They had the sophomore slumps. They should have traded him when the trade value was so high. I mean, they could have gotten some great players last year for Tyler Hero, and that would have been much better for fitting in their actual demographic of what their team is, because Jimmy Butler's getting older and older. So you really want to put some good players around him at this point. You can't wait around. That was the problem with the Celtics whenever Kyrie Irving was there. He was expecting to win right away. He didn't want to wait around for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to get better. He's going to go and play with KD and Kyrie. So you got to look at all these aspects and sort of think about the personality of the player too, and whether they really just want to win or whether they want to get their team, or whether they want to lead their team their own way or something like that. But I'm interested in that. I'm interested to see how the Celtics end up changing their front office. Obviously, Brad Stevens is the president now. I want to see who they hire as their coach, and then I think they're going to try and trade Kemba Walker. And I want to see what value they can get out of that. So those are the two main ones for me. But yeah.
And coach of the year for you? It's
coach of the year. I like Tom Thibodeau. I'm happy he won it. I think that the Knicks obviously making it to the playoffs is huge. But overall, what's the coach for the Hawks' name? Do you know?
Hawks is what's the coach of the? With the coaches' names, I'm not really. It's not my biggest strength. So
that's not my biggest strength either. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. So, but yeah, of course you're right.
The Hawks coach.
Yeah, Hawks coach also. He did a great job. But I think the next season will be really interesting. Maybe we will see one last run for LeBron. I will give him one last year and then.
That's what I'm thinking. I think this year it was just such a hard year for them because they were getting injured all the time. They still didn't have the same role players as they had the year before that really were the reason why they made it. And if you got Anthony Davis getting hurt all the time, can't make it. He honestly might be the best player in the NBA. From an actual one-on-one guarding standpoint, it's nearly impossible to guard Anthony Davis. So if you have him in there, plus LeBron, obviously, I mean that's going to be pretty tough to come back from and beat if you're playing against them next year. So I'm excited to see how they end up coming back next year. And I know this year their front office is going to make some moves. And that's going to be interesting to see. I've heard some rumors about Damian Lillard possibly going there. That would be crazy, but we'll see.
Yeah. So McKinley, I think we have to talk after the season, or maybe when the finals are.
I'd love to talk at any time, man. I'm free any Friday at any time. I'd love to talk. It was a lot of fun.
I would love to, because I think it's cool for the German community to have some information about the NBA from the US, So
I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing, man. I really respect and appreciate all that you're trying to do there. And